Welcome to Snobs, a podcast where we critique everything because nothing is sacred
and everything can be refined, elevated, and nitpicked.
My name is Aaron. I'm a writer and comedian and performer. And today I'm a snob about transitions.
Hi, I'm Connie. I'm a calligrapher and a writer. And today I'm a snob about depth.
Today in our episode, we're critiquing Alok's comedy special called Biology.
It's on YouTube.
Yeah, and it's an hour of jokes as well as poems. Alok is trans artist, South Asian trans artist who is a poet and a comedian that Connie introduced me to. What did you feel when you first saw them on Instagram?
I think I saw them in an interview first, and I felt like they were this thoughtful philosopher about the way that they experience life and about the way that they choose to express themselves in words, in action, in style too.
Yeah, a thoughtful, kind of Instagram philosopher feels right. Because it doesn't feel like they're saying punchlines, but it feels like they just happen to be funny while
watching their
Instagram. Now, how do you feel about them now? After watching, about them, but how did you feel about this understanding of who they are from these clips versus watching an hour-long special?
I thought that the dynamics within the clips felt like this really slow, steady, I'm going to tell you a joke. I'm thinking as I'm telling you a joke, but I'm really saying something. I'm really trying to teach you something feeling. And I thought that the special would have a bigger range of dynamics and emotion. But it felt like everything that I thought, everything I experienced online was all the entire range I experienced. All the entire
You didn't get
range.
anything more.
Yeah, I didn't get anything more. I experienced the full range already. Yeah.
I think that's how I felt too. I think a thing to note about, spoiler alert, I think because they are billed to be both a poet and a comedian, in this special, they perform poetry in two kind of 8 to 10 minute sections. They go into a lot of spoken word, right? Which is just basically kind of storytelling, spoken word-esque poetry about their grandfather, about their relationship with their grandfather, and their grandfather's death.
And a suicide encountered on the subway.
In New York. And I think that is the piece I hadn't seen. Did you?
Yeah, I saw it.
Oh, was that on Instagram too? Oh, yeah, that was the thing I didn't see. And I think when you were like, oh, I've seen this grandfather bit, I thought it was going to be more jokey, but it is full on Def Jam poetry, spoken word. What did you think about that?
I felt that one of the main things that is Alok's thesis, right? The reason the name is called Biology is that transphobia happens when people are afraid to confront their mortality, and they see trans people living vicariously, choosing however they want to live, and that is a threat that reminds them of their own mortality. That's the thing that Alok says, and I'm paraphrasing, in their interviews and in the show. And this idea of like, we can experience this extreme happiness, extreme sadness at the same time through this experience of life, through this fluidity of life that isn't a gender binary or emotional binary. That's kind of the premise of the show and the philosophy grounding the show to me. And it felt like the moments that were in poetry needed to be earned. It needed to be an elegy. Someone needs to die in order for this to be poetry. And I think I wanted to see more frivolous, fun poetry, more poetry that exists alongside the death just to be happy, because the depth of happiness can be at the depth of the sadness, and all of that can be expressed
in both
forms.
Yeah. I thought that when I first experienced like the poetry next to the comedy, I thought it was like very exciting, right? I was like, ooh, they're actually pushing a boundary. But, and that was like, I was like, that is cool that they are doing this next step, right? Because on top of this, or like not in addition, like another different way to reframe their thesis is like this idea that, you know, transness gets critiqued on the aspect of like its biology, right? But the only biological truth in the world is that we die, right? And I think that that's what they mean when they say like like watching trans people confronts people about their mortality. And it's interesting because, again, they talk about how in life there are all these moments of happiness and sadness and things along those lines. And there isn't, it's became really clear that the poetry is the sadness and the death, and the comedy is the happiness and the life or whatever. And that felt kind of, it felt like initially I was like, oh, this is an interesting like device, right? To put these two things next to each other. I wanted to see how they like interacted, you know, like I wanted to see, now that we are either you prove the thesis true, that you show somehow that they're like, without the poetry, the jokes aren't funny. Without the jokes, the poetry means nothing, right? Like that might have been like something that I would have wanted to see, like to prove your thesis, or to start at this thesis and then like be like, because this is true, here are all these things that we can see, and to therefore be like, trans existence is proof of like the like true meanings of life, or the, you know.
Sure. I mean, I see it less as proof, because I think there's this resistance to wanting to prove that transness has value, right? But it's also, but for me, the proving the thesis in some way is like, let me practice the thing that you don't know how to do, right? Like, it's like in a lot of the jokes, there is this like, I'm an ally of white cis het people and I'm observing them doing these things. Why are they dressed like that? Like they are concerned about the groups that oppress them, right? And that joke format keeps things quite detached from the viewer. And like, I think the thing that I wonder is just like, what would poetry about white people sound like? That either written from the point of being an ally, or just, what does it sound like? What does making fun sound like in poetry? Or genuine admiration and frustration. Yeah, like either one. I think there's like the interplay, like everything else is so fluid that this particular binary of poetry and stand-up feel really like the dynamic is like really apparent because everything else is so fluid, and everything is everything else, and everything exists on a spectrum.
Sure.
Except this thing.
You're saying everything within the special, or everything
within the special.
Sure.
Like, feels very much like we're trying to describe a world, describe an experience in which things are on a spectrum.
Sure.
Or the ideal world is that, right? Mm-hmm. And then the thing we get is this very binary form.
Yeah. How would you describe the risk that they took?
I think the risk that they took is the risk to not be fully understood.
Sure.
The risk of turning the lens around, making people feel like they're observed. Making people feel what they make them feel.
Sure. And when you say people, you mean like white people?
White people, head people, who usually do the marginalizing. Alok is doing the marginalizing. Alok is doing the marginalizing back.
Yeah.
That's the risk that they take. And it is also the risk, and that in itself is the risk that they're not taking, which is... They are speaking to the... We're still speaking in the dynamic of the oppressor and oppressed.
Because it's to truly marginalize, like... It's like, what is full inside baseball, like, queer art that is fully unintelligible to, like, queer POC art? Now you can say POC, just queer brown art, right? That is fully unintelligible to, like the majority audience in America, which is straight white people. It's like, I actually think that risk isn't a risk. It is a guaranteed, like, harm or failure, right? Because you won't get millions of followers, right? Like, you have to be understandable to the majority for you to gain the popularity, right? And to gain the power, and for your art to be seen. Because like, art that is solely made for a minority audience a lot of the time doesn't see the, like, true success, or like success at a grand scale.
Interior Triumph.
The book.
Yeah.
The book. Yeah. Or just all this other art that I don't know, because I'm not in that inner community of insert X minority group.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah. Were you impressed with anything in the show?
I was. I think the I've never seen a stand-up comic do comedy in the spoken word voice. I think, like, that's their main, like, performance voice. But I've never seen that, and I thought that was very, like, funny, because most of the time, like, most comics just sound like themselves, unless you're, like, absurdist or kind of surrealist, right? Like, a lot of comics are just talking, and they definitely don't sound like they're just talking, right? Like, they don't sound like they do in their interviews, right? Like, instead, they just sound like the moment of the pillow, right? Like, they do this very, like, spoken word thing, and I thought that's always exciting for me to see.
I thought it was, like, funny spoken word.
Yeah. I think it's supposed.
You think it's a comedian doing spoken word? I thought it was a spoken word person, just happens to be funny.
But that's what I thought through the Instagram
clips.
But watching an hour of these jokes, it made me more clearly understand that they are a comedian, right? It makes me look at them and can envision that they do the grind of going to open mics and they go and get on stage and share the stage with other comedians. They just do a thing that is slightly different. But it is very, in my opinion, because of how the jokes are constructed, because there does always seem to be like premise, punchline, or like premise, and we extend the premise for a long time with a bunch of punchlines. I think that's what I experienced, the difference between like social media and the hour-long special, is the genre of them became way more clear to me. And it became way more clear that they have like real chops. They can be fit into the stand-up like mold. Right? I can envision comedy clubs hiring them to do these bits.
Sure, yeah.
Right? Because I think that even though a lot of my stuff is stand-up, because of how like storytelling I am, I don't think I can exactly go do like some comedy clubs, right? Like a really basic, like very straightforward, low ceiling, brick wall comedy club. I can do sets that are for comedy clubs, but like my actual show isn't exactly that, you know? But with their jokes, I can see them being in a comedy club.
You mean when they apply to Edinburgh Fringe, they can check off comedy pretty easily?
Yeah, they can check
instead
off
of theater.
They can check off both, but they can be in comedy
pretty
easily.
Yeah.
But they live in theater. They can also live in theater because they do this like cross genre thing.
Yeah.
Do we want to move on?
Do you have anything else to say? I don't.
Okay, then yeah, let's keep on.
Okay.
So, in a new segment that was also part of the kind of first segment of our first episode, because we're writers, we thought we would also want to write sometimes for these episodes. We are using the piece of content that we're critiquing as a prompt for writing. But in some ways, we can write almost anything. It doesn't have to be about the special itself. Whatever the content triggers within us, we write. And we're going to be able to see like how it kind of extends differently.
And we'll talk about each other's writing. And maybe we'll give this segment a title, but for now it's just whatever Aaron.
It's just called writing prompt or a response.
Writing.
Writing response.
Yeah.
Should I go first? Or
you should go first because yours is closer to the special that we just talked about before.
So I think So I think that the thing that I just to give it a little context, I thought that voice that the spoken word voice was really interesting, and Alok had a very clear formula. The thing that you were talking about, where they make a joke about allyship, about how they're trying to be allies to white people. They do this thing which they take a concept and they kind of turn it on its head. And I saw a version of this, and then I thought it was like funny in one sentence, and then I was like, oh, I'm just gonna write it in the form of like Alok's joke. And I'm going to now read this thing
in Alok's voice.
Yeah, and I will try to do it in Alok's voice.
Okay.
It is so brave that in their special, Alok chooses to show the world who they truly are. That they are not afraid of the world, laughing at them for what they put on stage. That they are not scared that the world might cry because of what they say on stage. Up there in that fabulous red blouse and tight-fitting leather skirt, Alok lives the principle of their community. They are not in the binary. They are not one or the other. They are both. They are both a comedian and a poet. And it is so inspirational and brave. Alok won't let anyone tell them what they are allowed to write, because they write in both pentameter and in punchlines. Poets play with pink pain, while comedians play with blue joy. That's biological. Alok, however, plays in both, their poetry coming directly at the mention of the word pain. Spoken word spills from them about the brutality of their grandfather's dementia. Poetry is their vehicle for pain and death. You know, the sad stuff. Because comedy can't do that. No, comedy is for the happy stuff. Comedy is the rest. Because all of the poetry shit is just so exhausting. And so all of the comedy comes rushing back. Set up, punchline, set up, punchline, set up, punchline. No transitions. They use a hard cut. It is an artistic choice. Or maybe Alok is just transition phobic. Cancel them. Cancel them. Rise up, my genreless babies, and cancel Alok for their anti-transition practices. In the special, there might be both poetry and comedy, but there's a hard wall between the two. The bathrooms are separate. Cancel Alok, because we want the all-genre bathrooms. We want sad comedy about death and funny poetry about queerness. Write me a setup in meter and hit me with a metaphorical punchline. Give me an observational couplet, then write me a haiku using crowd work. So, what do you do? For work, oh, an engineer? Do you like your job? Alok, don't be anti-transition. Don't be a poet and a comedian. Be both. You are a comediette or a poet median. Sounds weird, but we can workshop it.
This is very deadly. Yeah. You are a deadly writer.
Why is it deadly?
It is praise and criticism all together. Fluid praise to criticism back to praise. And there's no line between the two.
Yeah, dude. Yeah. No line, baby.
No line. Which was the idea that came first? How did you organize things after that? What was the funny thought?
I think when we first watched it, you were like, I have problems with these transitions between the thing. And then the whole idea came from this, like, Alok is anti-trans. And I just thought that was like, that, because that is such a, like, it feels like such an Alok, like, idea.
Yes.
Right? Like, them being like, ha ha ha, yeah, we're like really close to this other thing, right? And it's really ironic that this trans person is anti-trans,
yeah,
right? And so I was just like, okay, like the moment I wrote the sentence Alok is anti-transition, I just thought it was like so delightful, and I was like, okay, I guess this is what I'm writing about. Like literally it was just that, and then just teasing out all of the ideas to clearly draw out the binaries, right? The binary of the things we care about, which is, I don't think a lot of people like give a shit about when they watch their special, which is that they are a poet and a comedian, even though they even make that point of being like, I'm a poet, I'm a comedian, am I comedy, am I theater, like they make that dichotomy, but I actually think the general audience doesn't really give a fuck, right? But then like for me, I'm like, oh, genre, like fuck genre, right?
Yeah.
But also like know that it's kind of a necessary evil,
yeah,
right? And yeah, I just thought that the anti-trans thing was just really fun to me.
I feel like Alok would appreciate this, and you all should tag Alok in this thing so they can experience them being anti-trans.
Yeah, because I think that they would find it funny because they were like, because they know what they're doing.
Yeah.
Right?
Where, like, in your writing, are you trying to, like, how are you blurring the lines? Because
in here,
like, I know how you're blurring the lines, but as you're writing, like, does it come natural to you to break the binary? Because our brains usually still think in binaries, and you have to like intentionally break them. I mean, that's like my experience of the world, right? Like because we still think if I say beautiful, you know the other thing is ugly, right?
Yeah.
And then to like, how do you cut through the thing to find the thing in the middle? Do you know what I'm saying?
I'm not sure if like I am. I still think like I'm just making a joke here. Like I know it's true, right? Like I know this critique is true, but for me, it's like everything that drove me was thinking of this premise, which is like a very jokey thing, right? And like thinking of this premise of like Alok is anti-transition, and then you're like, okay, what are they transitioning between? Okay, I guess we're gonna be poets and comedians, and then we're gonna be like, okay, let's create more binaries, and then I think that like the poet is pink pain, and like comedy is blue jokes, right? Like blue joy, right? And I just thought that was literally like me being like, okay, like boys and girls, and like doing all of boys and girls pain, and like I just kind of pulled these what it's the color, right? It's the color, it's the joy, it's the poetry, right? It's like the happy, the emotion, the genre, and then like we throw on the color on top of it just to drive home the point of like gender or whatever, right?
And you're also playing the ally perspective that Alok is playing in their special, which is that you are the ally of the transitions, right? Like you're the ally of the fluidity. No, you are the ally of fluidity, which is why you say cancel them.
What are you talking about? I'm not the ally. I am transitions, right? Like, but yes, like I am the minority. You know, I am the minority making Alok into the majority, right?
How would you look at this now? It's been a while since you've written this. Like, where would you want to push it more? Do you have a spot where you're like,
I ran out of like jokes in here. I ran out of like fun images, you know, like I'm trying to see, right? Because the last idea I ended up on was this like bathrooms idea, right? Which I thought was
great.
I thought the bathrooms idea was like so stupid.
That's great.
Into all genre bathrooms, which was just so it's just like the political issue, right? Yeah, and by the end, I was like, well, I've beaten this horse into the ground.
Sure.
Like, I've beaten this dead horse into the ground. I think it's like, for me, it's like, how would I push this more? I think that, honestly...
Would you write more poems?
I would write, not more poems, but I would write more serious stuff. To talk about what the cost to being... not all genre is, you know, because it's like in some ways this stays in the realm of the joke, right? Like this doesn't ever go into like what is the cost of not drawing the line between the identity of the poet and the identity of the comedian.
What is the cost?
It is potentially a rejection of yourself in some ways. Right? It is knowing that by drawing the line between those two identities, there are moments in which one of the identities can't come out. Right? You can make an argument that that might be necessary at times, you know, where like I would, like as a principle, like I believe that. Right? But like if I really wanted to like make the like heartfelt argument, like, yeah, to be like there is harm. When you like draw a boundary between the two might be like where I would go and try to make the serious argument. But I don't know if I would actually believe this super serious argument. That's super serious argument. I might believe like, I think the thing that I believe here is the like criticism, like the literary criticism of it, which is that like, yo, you're trying to prove a point here to be like genre free, all emotions existing simultaneously in this special. I make jokes and write poems. I'm just more like, yo, live up to what you're trying to do as opposed to
Mm.
You know, that's like the most serious I can get, but that's more as like a critic than a like actual social like this is a fake social justice position.
Yeah, I mean,
right?
this is a very like it's mimicking the white voice, even though it's mimicking Alok's voice, but you're mimicking the white voice of like being like
Outrage.
let's cancel this person and so on. Yeah. For me, what they lose by drawing the line between comedian and poet is maybe not entirely losing their identity per se, but losing, they have the capacity to do it. You see it and you know that they can do it. And by not doing it, I think it's kind of like, it's not so much their identity. It feels like there's a potential in the art itself that is lost.
I think it's that. I think it's because you know that Alok's life as a person isn't really like, I trust that they live a life true to themselves way more than like huge percentage of people in the world, and
in some ways maybe on stage.
Like they you mean like off stage they live more authentic life
than on stage.
Exactly. And there's just this there's like some disingenuity between like who they are on stage. It isn't a full risk take, it isn't a full vulnerability, which they don't need to do, but in some ways their whole brand is built off of it, like built off of the fact that they're like out there fucking showing themselves and being like highly like insightful. But I guess they don't have to take the risk if they don't actually want to. But there is that gap between how they live their life, which I'm assuming is quite like congruent and authentic, right? And they still probably fail in many aspects, like every human does. But I think the persona that they occupy as an entertainer is actually still quite a bit farther than what they seem. Which costs the art. It's the reason why we wanted
more
to love. We were so excited to watch this thing, and we're disappointed, or I was disappointed.
I wanted to see what Alok could show us, reveal to us, teach us about how these two genres kind of walk into each other, walk out of each other unexpectedly. Like you don't know when one thing starts, when one thing begins. It doesn't matter when one thing starts and one thing begins all the time, but like some kind of fluidity between the two, some stark transition between the two would be, I think, what I was craving. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Do you have anything else you want to share about the process or the writing of your very cruel and funny criticism praise piece?
Again, it's mostly just a single premise that like got. I was like, how many funny interesting sentences can I write? While still actually building an argument.
The argument is very tight.
In
this world,
I'm pretty proud of this one.
I would cancel Alok too.
I'm pretty proud of this one. Like, I really hope that they see this, but they probably won't. Because it's very few people will appreciate this. Because it actually requires a little bit of attention to like. Understand what I'm saying.
And that's the feeling of their work. It's like, it feels like it all requires a little bit of attention, and I'm glad people stick around for it. Yeah.
Okay, what did you write?
So I wrote this thing about putting on red lipstick because I think about Alok talking about makeup and in their interviews. And I wanted to challenge this idea that we put on red lipstick, especially now with this entire like red lipstick movement of just this thing that feels very performative of like.
Sorry, what's a red lipstick
The
movement?
red lipstick movement is like women, in order to protest and stuff, put on red lipstick and
Protest what?
anything. To protest existing. But just like
Act of suicide.
post-war, women wore lipstick to protest, and now women wear red lipstick, and it feels like this strange performative thing. And I want to give it some weight in that I'm acknowledging still that it is a protest, but of something really different.
Sure.
I watched Alok talk about like putting on makeup.
Yeah, what does Alok say about putting on makeup?
Just the idea of like, this is how they express themselves, and this threatens people, like reminds people of their mortality. And that I put on makeup, I love red lipstick, and as a person, like as a femme person, people are not threatened by me putting on red lipstick. And I wanted to investigate that a little bit.
Sure. Okay.
When I reach for my red lipstick, I am reaching to cloak the sounds I make, wrap the words I speak with a silent, sacred secret that calls upon my body the power of bright red blood fresh from the kill. The speech that comes from my brain and lodges itself behind my lips feel more at ease at the exit, lubricated for its entrance into the world. But how does the crimson curve function? Is it only the intention, the knowing that you have pre-stained the ways you purse, part, and curl your lips, and that you will be smiling, frowning, singing, and shouting today in saturated color? I feel its power exercised the moment when the sack of blood that is my body is flipped inside out under my nose. When what retreats to my veins to keep me safe rips through its seals to spill me out, mounting a window to the body inside, framing my life and my death at once transparent around my teeth. Who I embody is not this invincible other who resides in the mirror, who I hope to encounter throughout the day so she can take on the world outside the bathroom instead of me. I embody instead the violent body I evade, the body I already inhabit, the body that will become my corpse, whose power has become opaque to me. Under the red lipstick, my body acquires evidence of itself, binding to oxygen. My body sees itself inside out. The armor, the weapon, the invitation is only red because I am.
I think you capture the feeling, but what is kind of the power of red? Like, why red lipstick versus lipstick in general?
I think even in this silly performance thing of like I'm wearing red to protest war or whatever, right? It's that the idea of men go to war and they spill blood, and women are at home putting on the equivalent of that red lipstick, right? There's this sense of being alive, more alive, having eaten blood, having hunted, having like, red dripping from your lips. That freshness from killing something, the power to do that, and the power inherent within you to become that, to become the kill, to become the hunt, is like, especially I think around the lips, evokes that, the vitality, the danger of being alive.
Yeah. I think I notice a thing that's like similar between these techniques that, like, from a craft point of view, between like my writing and your writing, is the drawing of kind of dichotomies, right? Because I think I notice this idea of being the killer and being the killed, right? Connected through blood, right? Being the weapon and the armor, right? As red lipstick being a cover, but also being a cover to hide behind, or being a thing to, like, I think there's a really where you say like the silent sacred secret, right? There's a thing to be hidden, or a secret, like, you know, there's like a thing where you're hiding it out of shame, or you're hiding it out of as it's precious, right?
Or you're hiding because you're hunting.
Yeah, you're hiding because you're hunting, or you're hiding because you're hunting. Yeah, right. Yeah. And like, what are kind of other, like, kind of these dichotomies that you like thought through as you're writing this? I don't know if you're thinking about it actively, but now reflecting back,
I think there's this, because the red lipstick is also, right, it's also sexy. It's also this like symbol of pleasure and like wanting to enjoy pleasure in that way. Like blood is also that, a liveliness. Mars, like libido, is also all of that. But it's interesting because the feeling that I see portrayed in like lipstick commercials, and the feeling that I see being talked about, you know, when women say, oh, by putting on makeup, I'm like, I feel like a different person, and I can go out and tackle the world, and I feel like someone else. And I find that both empowering in its sense of, if you need to channel an alter ego to conquer the shit in your life, then do that.
Sure.
But there's this power that I feel like we give away in that movement.
Sure.
Of just like, I'm putting on red lipstick to be someone else, which I think is fascinating, right?
The only way to get empowered is to be someone else.
And
you can't be that person ever.
Yeah, and then this thing is condensed in some pigment, right? Like, that doesn't make sense to me. So what is it drawing out within us? Where is the power? Where does the power lie that it evokes that we're not thinking about? And it's easier for us to position ourselves as this powerless person who needs makeup.
Yeah,
right?
It's also the interesting dynamic where it's like on the other side, right? Because there's also the moments, I've actually two noticings, which was one, it's like the other side is like sometimes I hear women being like, I feel like myself when I put on makeup, which also does the same inverse dichotomy, which is like, now I'm not myself without my makeup.
Yeah.
When in reality, you're saying I am both myself with and without makeup. And there's power.
Trans makeup.
Yeah, you are. Yes, this is really connecting back strong. And I think that there's something really interesting about that. And then for that connection, because again, you're trying to blur the line between the binaries by pointing out a lot of the binaries. And then the portal being the mouth, right? The I think the moment when the sack of blood that is my body is flipped inside out under my nose is a very kind of visceral way to describe your mouth, you know? Because yeah, it's right? Because that is your mouth, right?
Yeah.
It's, like, to describe your mouth as a moment the blood sac turns into the outside is like a very visceral, but it really paints the importance of the red's positioning, right? The red lipstick. Like, it's not just red lipstick, it's red lip. You know, and like the intimacy of the mouth as a portal is quite exciting.
It's like there's nothing redder than a living body.
Sure, yeah.
Because we're literally, you poke us and we will just give you more red, right? The feeling of being something this red inside, and that we need reminders of the red that we are inside, right?
Yeah.
Is a thing that we all need. Like, it's a thing that we all need to remind ourselves of the power and the powerlessness that we experience as just blood-filled bodies. And the red lipstick is one of the ways that happens, I think.
What's your favorite sentence out of this?
I like framing my life and my death at once transparent around my teeth.
Yeah, a lot of different ways to describe mouth. My life and my death at once transparent around my teeth.
Because I find our body's opaqueness so interesting, right? If we were walking around and our skins were transparent and you saw through our bodies, I think we would interact with each other very differently. Like, if we just saw how much life we all have, because we don't see it, so it's all just kind of a symbol, right?
Yeah, when you see the motion of
see the motion of it all, if you could see someone getting angry and like their heart churning, like, I wonder what that experience of life feels like. And so for me, it's like the moment of becoming transparent outside these teeth that don't decay when you die feels like an image I enjoy a lot.
Yeah, again, life and death through around my teeth. Again, it's like a portal between life and death. Or a portal where life and death exists on both sides. So no portal at all. How would you push this farther?
I think there's more work to do on like multiple sides of this. Of like, if it was longer, it's like when we actually think, like, for example, the thing you said of some women saying, oh, I feel like myself when I put on makeup. What is that? What is the thing that's happening there? What are they making themselves into in that moment?
You would just spend more time on bits.
I would spend more time on bits. I think I would talk a little bit more about, you spend more time on like the blood fresh from the kill of what it feels like to hunt, to be a prey, to like be on both sides of that. I think right now it just says fresh from the kill to like evoke that sentiment, and most of it is, I don't really explicitly say that the kill and the prey are both me and in my body and so on and so forth.
Sure. What do you want people who wear red lipstick to feel when they read this?
I want people who wear red lipstick to feel the power has always been theirs, and that they are, for the people made powerful by red lipstick, I want them to feel powerlessness. For the people who feel powerless and need red lipstick, I want them to feel power.
Sure.
I want them to feel the coexistence of of the life that is in you. I want them to feel the feeling of like, if you saw all of your body instead in a sack of blood, all of your blood hanging out here, how would you live your life differently? And that feels like a better way to help people than to tell them what to do.
Sure.
To reveal to them their power and vulnerability.
To bring it back to Alok, I think that using this piece of writing and its contemplation about red lipstick and its power that is within the person innately, I think that that is what feels to me like is missing in the special. Right? It's the recognition of that power. Like in the performance of it is an exercising of the power. In Alok's existence, that power also exists. But in its exact execution, that power doesn't feel exactly represented. That they've done everything on the surface. They look great, but they don't. It's the risk of it all. The risk to be killed. But maybe their existence is the risk enough.
It's like, okay, when you think about the red lips, right? It's like we put on this thing and we wanted to solve all our problems. The way that women idolize red lipstick, and I do too, of just like, you put it on, you can go out and you can just channel the confidence of a mediocre white man, right? Like you go out and just, it's like everything is possible, right? This thing. And that is giving so much power away. And that is saying or experiencing the world in such a way that we still need a savior.
Yeah.
And I think that's like my problem with it. It's in the sense of like, no one's coming to save you. You're putting on the red lipstick for yourself.
You can't be fucked if you don't have red lipstick.
Yeah.
Right. Like when people say I feel so powerful when I put on red lipstick, if you don't have red lipstick, then you don't feel like, or you're fucked, right? Like it's not as stark as that.
Yeah, but that's the feeling that I hear you saying in Alok too, of just like, I think the moment you acknowledge that you are also prey, it actually gives the thing more power.
Sure.
Right? Because you know who you are, like how much you can be attacked. You know how much you can conquer. You know how much you can be attacked. And you're just a full congruent thing. Like that's when I feel the most actual power.
To know that you can be prey, you get the power to know that you can run. Yeah. Right? That running is an option, and knowing that running is an option for you is quite powerful.
Or dying.
Yeah, or dying. but I'm saying but in the world of living, you know, that like a way to live is to run. Yeah. Right? Is powerful in its acknowledgement of all the things that are possible.
Yeah, and to just walk away.
Yeah, it's to walk away.
Yeah.
Cool. I mean, that's biology. Okay. Good job.
Thank you.